All right, good evening, everyone. It's May 16th. We're here for our school board meeting, and we got lots on the agenda, so let's get right to it after we do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Public comment is first. If anybody wishes to speak, please approach. If none, we'll move on to our top 10. How many top 10s do we have here? Raise your. We got
8 of 10.
Almost all of them. That's pretty
Wow.
good attendance. First of all, congratulations to you. Do you feel a little relieved that we're coming close to the end of the school year?
4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an incredible achievement by yourselves. You worked hard, lots of late nights, lots of weekends, lots of extra time. But, I'd also be remiss if I didn't point out who got you there, your parents. So could you give them a big round of applause? So if you wouldn't mind, if no one has stage fright, could you come up and introduce yourself? Tell us, if you want, what your plans are going forward. Maybe tell us a little bit about what you liked at Newmarket, what opportunities we could do better on, maybe. We're willing to hear everything, so not everybody at once.
You want to go first, Caitlin?
Yeah,
Maybe
Caitlin,
first.
yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you want to combine your report with, no.
No.
All right. Or should we go in order?
Just, you go ahead.
Oh, hello, I'm Caitlin. I am attending the University of New Hampshire, studying health management and policy next year. What are we supposed to talk about? Our opportunities. Yeah, so obviously on the school board, I got to do a lot of student council work. I was involved in Youth to Youth, which has really shaped me and allowed me to figure out what I wanted to do for my future, so I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, I honestly, coming from a small school, a lot of people are like, oh, small school's not good, but I think it gave us a leg up going into college, so yeah.
Caitlin, did you go to Newmarket schools all the way through?
I came here in 4th grade.
4th grade?
Yep,
Okay.
and I came from Hooksett, so that was a much larger school.
Yep.
And I stayed in touch with a lot of people from there who are now in Londonderry, Manchester. And I'm just so glad I ended up here and not at a much larger school because the environment is just entirely different.
Great.
So,
Thank
thank you.
Hi, is this on?
Yeah, it's really for home.
Testing.
It's for home, so it won't
Okay,
help.
my name is Jackson Tower. Yeah. I'm
Where are you going, Jackson?
gonna go to Berklee College of Music in Boston. Probably gonna study music.
Maybe.
I like Newmarket because I liked how everyone knew each other and it was cool, and I also liked the opportunities to the extended learning opportunities. Yep. I thought that was cool because I got to do stuff. I didn't think
guys
I'd have
might remember
stage
he
fright,
did-
but
I know. So we're treated to another one this year.
Your
right?
audiences
I've
are going to be
heard.
much bigger.
I
Not
didn't.
to
Another
spoil the surprise.
composition,
Yeah, no,
you
it's
mean?
Might there
gonna
be
be
another
good.
Composition?
new composition this year?
Yeah, there is. So go to the show. It's gonna
Talent
be
show.
cool.
Next Thursday, 7 o'clock.
All right.
Hi, I'm Jelena Sinsenbath, and I'm attending the University of New England next year. And I got accepted into the dental medicine program to study to be a dental hygienist in my bachelor's degree. And I liked going to Newmarket because it gave me a lot of opportunities to work with, within my class and the other students around me. I am the vice president of my class and the president of the student athlete leadership team, so I like the opportunities it gave me with that.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Come on, Evangelista. Let's go.
My name's Antonio, and I'm going to Montana State University for paleontology. And what I liked about Newmarket was it was like Jackson said, it was a small school. Everyone knew everybody, so it was kind of easier to talk to everybody, like teachers, and get help and everything. And the teachers were really great in helping students get to where they needed. So Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Juliana Gilfucci, and I will be attending the University of New Hampshire next year. I'll be majoring in biomedical science under the medical microbiology major. I'll also be doing Air Force ROTC, and I didn't start at Newmarket until my sophomore year of high school, and that was kind of an interesting transition for me because I've gone to private school since first grade. So I was a little bit nervous and a little bit scared, but then after I transferred, it was easily one of the best decisions I've ever made. One of the things that I really have loved about Newmarket is just the environment and the community atmosphere, not just within the school, but also within the whole town. It's something that really added to my high school experience. And then, sorry, I'm nervous. Another thing that I really love about Newmarket is all of the fantastic education opportunities that we have that not a lot of other schools have, like through SST, and because that was one of the major things that helped me choose my major for college, because I take the biomedical science program there. And also through the online class opportunities, and yeah, also just it's just a great environment, student to student, student to teacher. It's such a great community, and that is definitely one of the things that made my high school experience so great.
That's a question.
Yeah.
What was the major difference in your experience at private school versus a public school?
That's a hard question. I guess probably the main difference for me personally was just the environment. I feel like for Newmarket, it's such a small town and such a close-knit community that entering that atmosphere was very different for me, because in private school, everybody came from all over. So there wasn't, I guess, I'm trying to figure out how to put it. It's just kind of a different, like, there's more school spirit and more school pride, and the atmosphere is so different. It sounds crazy, but you can feel the difference.
You can. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Marie Honer, and I'll be attending the University of New England in the fall, and I will be studying medical biology on a pre-med track. And what I really loved about Newmarket, as everyone's basically pretty much said, is just the close-knit community between students themselves, and also the relationships we've had with teachers. Because as we are a pretty small school, teachers have been able to really kind of adjust their learning to the individual student, which I feel like bigger schools can't really offer. And when I have friends that go to larger schools, and when we talk about kind of even just class size in general, they're like, oh my God, just couldn't even dream of offering something like that. But yeah.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Kyle James. I will be attending Rochester Institute of Technology for computer programming and game design. Personally, for Newmarket, I enjoyed smaller classrooms. I was able to connect with my teachers more, and when I was looking at colleges, a lot of people said, like, any smaller college I went to, it's like, oh yeah, we got to talk to our teachers more, and I didn't know a world where it wasn't like that, so I thought it was weird that it's like, oh, you don't talk to your teacher that much, so yeah, for me that's
Great.
what's special.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm sick. Not sick of this meeting. Just
stay around, you will be.
I'm sick of you.
That's true. Is this on TV?
Yes.
So I'm Brian McKenney, and I'm going to be going to UNH next year for computer science, and I'm interested in game design and programming also, like Kyle. In fact, I'm working on 3 games right now, 2 for school projects, which is what I think is awesome about Newmarket is the teachers. I think we have really great teachers and cool projects, that they do. But if any of you viewers are interested, I have a Twitter page called Endling Entertainment, and you can check out my card game, Lesser Evil. Totally worth your money. It's not even out yet, but yeah, you should check into
You
it.
take advances.
Yeah, really.
And what else was I supposed to say besides advertisements?
Can you just talk about the couple you're designing now? What are they?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So for calculus, I'm making a tesseract. Tesseract is a 4D cube thing.
Yeah.
As a board game, which is kind of weird. I haven't fully developed it yet, but that's the idea. And then for English, I'm making a choose your own adventure story. Yeah, I also haven't really developed that much, but yeah, I'm going to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's take a little break.
When's the top 10 lunch?
May
When-
24th.
All right. Nobody knows where you're going, and I don't know because one time I gave it away.
Yeah.
Do you
I just
really
want to
not
acknowledge
know?
No,
that
I
two
can
students
never.
weren't here.
Yeah.
Yes. So this, Anna Childs and Alyssa Levesque are not here tonight. They were also in the top 10, so congratulations to them as well. As I said, we're going to take a quick break. We've got some things for you, some goodies, so we'll do that.
We'll see you later on.
Not going anywhere. It'll be on video forever, but they'll rewatch it all the time. They'll go on YouTube, look up Georgina sends him back.
Congratulations. So, what about your income? Kind of rent? Yeah.
But he loves it.
Really? Yeah. I got a very good friend of mine's son who made the game. And then he went into the library. I totally don't think So once again, so is it a PS? Is that a new?
No.
bachelor's and then another four for like
Or what? Chemistry? Gotcha. So you're just approaching it like a nurse to a PA or whatever. Yeah, yeah. I noticed it very much more involved than they ever had before. It used to be the kind of good.
Top 10 Photoshop. Top 8.
Oh, do we have to keep going?
Yeah. Pretty cool. I'm gonna try to go to that lunch and see if I can swing it. Have you been to one of those yet?
Should we stand in front of
I'll do it now because I'd like to see your face.
All right.
84 miles.
But I can't. And Delphi, like she stayed to she was in private school. I don't consider St. Thomas private. You know?
That's really impressive.
We can photobomb. Everybody stand up. We'll photobomb. Wait. You have to photobomb.
I'm not gonna add to that.
Oh wait, hold on. Nobody.
Just a presentation.
Well, it's a distance, that's what. And there's nothing you can do.
No. If they, but I'm hoping that I bang it too hard.
It's like nine. So I have to go try to get the towers. Had my How many of them?
So far, well, I don't know if they've seen it through other channels, because it was. Well, I mean, just one that I know of. They could be, this is a right, it could be more like, could be more like. But it closes next Friday.
They're gonna be sick.
Take care. Thanks
Bye,
for
guys.
coming.
You don't want to stay? Yeah. Bye. Huge house.
It actually is, because you know what you think? They forgot.
If you just run it from there. Go back though, if you just run it, instead of doing it in present, if you just run it from your deck. You are, but it's fine. Yeah, just run it from there. You can just scroll through. Fabulous.
I'm going to stand up here and send you all
The floor is yours.
All right. Hello and welcome everybody. So we are here to do some informational pieces about the Newmarket professional development, and especially where we're going in the upcoming year. In this past year, we have taken a bit of a change from how we've done things in the past and taken a look a little more globally and taken more information from more stakeholders to try to move our professional development forward. We started by working with our teacher leader group, and we started doing some cross collaboration meetings.
The meeting people you can see are here, so the PD committee is listed, and myself, Shayna, and Amy are cross members on both committees. So we get to be kind of that liaison between the two groups of people and have that communication between the groups. We also had joint meetings that included building administrators, so that we could have those conversations on really where we wanted to go with the professional development in the upcoming years.
Yes, it's me. So what this led us to was having conversation with both groups at the same time so that we could collaborate together. The teacher leader group works with many of the staff members. Each teacher leader works with a particular group, whether it be language arts or math or science and social studies or unified arts. So they're working regularly with the staff members in their areas. So when we all get together, we're really hearing from many more voices and really being able to look at things, as she said, more globally so that we can cover more bases. And so we have had those initial meetings together and realized that that was really helpful for us, and it's not something that we can really do on, every single time. But if we can do that, say, once every couple of meetings so that we're really staying in touch with one another, it will be really helpful for us. Some of the other things that came up as we talked was that there have, in the past, there's been some confusion. Okay, so how should we use our early release days compared to our full days of professional development? So we made the decision that we would use them very purposefully differently so that we would know in advance the best use of that time. So we are now planning on using our release days for building professional development and then the full days for district development. We also feel that this is going to help us quite a bit with moving things forward so that we can look at things knowing exactly, especially with the teachers leader working with us. We know the direction that they know, the direction that they're going in their particular departments more thoroughly than maybe those of us on the PD committee do, so that we can really do a better job of looking forward and planning going forward. We also talked about the fact that we need to know exactly what the district initiatives are so that we can take those into account as well. And one of the things that you'll see soon, I think it's the next slide, is that we are talking about, what are the things that we really need to take care of now. And we have talked about what are the things that we can do for the rest of this year, but also start with the very beginning of next year as well. So one of the conversations we had that I thought was really meaningful was we talked about what does good PD look like. So we had 4 different articles spread out, and people chose which article they wanted to read. And then when we got to the group, we talked about what resonated with us in those articles. According to those articles, what did good PD look like? What did we agree with? What are we doing well? What are we not doing as well? And after we had those discussions, we had everybody write an exit ticket, if you will, with what resonated with them. We had them tweet, so they had 140 characters or less to write that. And while we're not all proficient at tweeting yet, it was really quite a fun experience. But a lot of the same language kept popping up. And so this is the language you see here that kept popping up, that we want our professional development to have defined outcomes. We want it to be collaborative, relevant. We talked a lot about feedback. And a feedback loop, having time to learn, try new skills, go back and talk about how that went, as opposed to just hearing about something and moving on and not revisiting that topic. Talked a lot about shared goals, common language. I think the words that came up most often were meaningful and purposeful. That
that's what's going to be most useful for us.
Can I
Mary?
just add one thing to that? That
Please.
part of that conversation was also that PD can't be a one-size-fits-all. Just as our students need different things, so do our adult learners. And sometimes I think in the past we've been guilty of trying to have all of our teachers do all of the same thing all at the same time, and with limited effectiveness for some of those staff members.
And I will also add, to toot your horn, Sheena, you led that session, if I do recall.
I did.
And you did a very excellent job doing it, and it was, you know, as a non-educator myself, we sort of looked at trainings that we'd all had in our various areas, and the same things came up, and how do we apply that to the professional development we deliver in the district, so thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Am I this one too?
Yes.
Oh gosh, thank you. Okay, so at our most recent meeting, we talked about planning our district professional development for our first days back in August, which was a little painful to have it this time in May, but so we talked about what we want that professional development to look like, and as a group said we really want to effectively combine our district and building goals with a positive school culture message, and talked about during this time of transition that we want to talk about school culture and making sure that we're all starting the year in a positive way. So we then brainstormed ideas and people that we know that we could reach out to. So we talked about growth mindset, both for students and adults. We talked about reaching out to Shannon Desiles, who I had seen at a conference recently. She is part of the Choose Love movement from Sandy Hook. So someone's reaching out to her. I'm reaching out to the New Hampshire School Administrators Association to see who they might know that could help us. Erica has reached out to Pamela Clark, who's been working with the teacher leaders and administrators this year. 2Rev is a group that works with competency-based education, and Amy reached out to Demonstrated Success in regards to their school culture presentation.
Just so the board knows, I reached out to Susan Givens as the incoming superintendent to help us come up with ideas as well, so that she knows what we're doing and we're on the right track. So just FYI.
Great.
Thank you, Mike.
So we're in that process right now.
And then as soon as we get that nailed down, we have our calendar all set with which days, you can see it shows the dates and whether it's a full day or an early release, so that we know whether it's district PD day or a building PD day. And we have some days that are different for the different buildings. For instance, fall, we always have our Newmarket, the elementary school parent meetings before the first progress report, so they're well aware of what's happening. And then late in the spring, we start working on some transition work as well in the schools. So we know what things we need to work around, and we know exactly what types of professional development we're going to be looking at for those dates. Oh, and I'm sorry, let me get in that bottom part that I almost missed. This is something that we haven't coordinated along with our PD as much in the past, which is our monthly staff meetings and our curriculum meetings with our teacher leaders, because we're going to be coordinating more often together. We can plan those within the whole time for professional development. Oh, yes, that's right.
Excuse me. So the administrative team has worked together to determine what the district PD goal will be for the district. Through our PD plan, there are 3 goals that our educators have. One is related to the district goal, one to the building, and a personal goal as well. And this year's Newmarket district goal is by October 31st. Each professional staff will meet with their administrator and review available data to develop a student growth goal. And then professional staff will report out on that at the end of the year. So really working on a collaborative conversation, reviewing all data to determine those goals together.
Mr. Pine.
Oh, I'm up. Good evening, how are you? Good.
Good. Just kind of give you a nutshell overview of Newmarket Elementary School and the professional growth, professional development that's been taking place. This past year, our building goal was for each professional staff member to develop a unit that was competency-based unit. One of the suggestions is we also said perhaps put your focus towards science, and you'll see why in a few moments there. You're clicking awfully fast there.
Yeah.
Snip snap. I got the clicker. So some things that have been going on this year by groups of faculty members is we have a UDL group that has been working with the CAST through the state of New Hampshire. This is their second year. We have a competency-based learning group as well. They're taking some courses through Southern New Hampshire. We also had members attend a training at Exeter last summer, and will be attending training this summer as well. Next generation science is something that we have embarked on. It's a movement that many districts throughout the state are already well in. I do have to admit we're a little behind on that, so that is, you'll see what our focus for next year is. And this year as well, we had Super Kids training. That is our new reading program, K through 2. It was really interesting talking to the teachers. Our last early release day, about when they first saw the program, they thought it was really overwhelming and there was no way that children would be able to do it. And now they're like, wow, we can't believe how well the kids have done with this and the growth that they have shown on it. So we're very pleased with this first year, and hopefully we'll continue to see that growth in our kids for the reading, particularly when we have our K grade right now go through all 3 years of the program. So we're looking for that to help strengthen our reading scores as well. Click. Additionally, we started work with Marianne Nice on multi-tiered support services. It's also has been known in the past as RTI. It's just our way of starting to take a look at how are we as a school doing our interventions. How are we getting those kids that need a little boost in their skills? How are we providing them the time during our day? We did adopt a new master schedule this year that had tiered interventions built right in at times, so they would always be in the room, in particular for reading for that core instruction. But again, we're looking at how can we take a look at what we're doing for our support services and refine that a little more, so maybe get some more people in and helping at that as well. And that's okay. We also did a little work on our vertical alignment of our curriculum as well. And that will help us with our CVE push that we'll have, continuing with.
What does that mean, Sean? The vertical alignment?
Vertical alignment. So when you think about curriculum, we talk about math curriculum. A lot of times people think, oh, it's just a third grade math curriculum. So we developed the standards in what a third grader should know in math, but now we're saying, okay, let's flip this up and go third, fourth, fifth. Are we making sure that these standards, what the kids need to know, and we're not like repeating something a bunch of times in that. Click. So our goal for next year, and this goal was developed with a conversation with my teacher leadership team, is that we want each professional staff member will integrate and implement next generation science standards into their units of study. Now, next generation science standards, I'm a former science teacher. They're very exciting. One of the ideas is that it is, when you hear standards, a lot of times you think of like, oh, what should the kids know in particular? Like, they need to know how plants grow and that sort of thing. They have that component, but instead of a curriculum and teaching science that is this wide and this deep, it's honing in on certain areas. It's honing in on having kids start to think more critically, think and apply the way scientists actually approach things. So it may be if you're studying plants, it could be, Amy, let's have you design an experiment on how do you think sound is going to affect plant growth. And Amy and a group of kids can go and start brainstorming of like, okay, maybe we try this, and try this. So it's really to kind of go back, see what happens, analyze what's going on, and again, refine what they're doing. So not so much as curriculum, but as a whole teaching approach as well. So the idea is that all teachers in the building can use that approach. So incorporate some of that into, like, in music, it could be how sound travels.
I've actually done that experiment with my own garden, and they heard me talking. The plants really.
Yeah, there you go. Come on over, mine need it.
Yep. Sorry.
That's quite all right. And then, these are just proposed professional development activities. August, we're going to be taking a look at our August day that's in the building. Part of that day is they kind of get, the first half is usually to get caught up on new things in the building, but the other part will be taking a full jump into next generation science and getting the people thinking about that. You can see that is kind of a recurring theme. May, I kind of left blank because depending on how we do that transitional piece, and maybe to try to incorporate a little more of the next generation sciences in that as well. One nice thing as well this year, if you could click to the next slide, is this year we also started working with the leadership team, and we did some professional development within our faculty meetings. A lot of things that we've done in the past you can really put out in the memo. So this year we talked about math interventions and teaching practices and how you use Cuisenaire rods, because there's a lot of people that are not familiar with that. So that was one focus. We did an activity just recently on literacy intervention. What are 10 steps that you can possibly do for literacy intervention in the walk to read movement? And again, one of the activities that Shana did after we came back from Colorado in MindSpark was sharing a vision for moving our school forward. Getting that input from all our teachers and saying, okay, what do we do well? What are the things that we need to kind of focus on? And what are the areas in which, those individuals would be interested in? It was a very interesting feedback. It was very, I would say, an uplifting thing, because kind of let us know we're doing a lot of things great. And yes, we have areas to grow, but we posted those up around the teacher's room for people just to reflect on when they're in the building as well. Next year's big thing for the teacher meeting are going to be math instruction and CBE. So that's kind of a nutshell for Newmarket Elementary School. Yes, sir.
Is a university like University of New Hampshire that are training our future educators, are they on the same page?
They're kind of making that shift. It depends on, I think some schools are a little more ahead than others. I'm really not sure the practices of the educational program at UNH at this time. I can't really speak to that now, but that is a shift that's starting to come along, particularly with the science. I know Southern New Hampshire University does a nice job with the embracing the next generation science standards and teaching the science the whole way. I'm assuming that is a kind of a shift you'll see with the mathematics and other things as well.
It would certainly bolster the future of this form of education if people were graduating with these concepts in mind.
I agree. Have people fresh out of school ready to go instead of having to kind of train them in it again and again and again.
Just that, I don't know who the question's to, but I, from my own experience, I have to every year get so many credits to keep your license, if you will. But a lot of the presentations, or they call them CLEs, we go to are just, they're sort of like this. They're kind of like a lecture, and they're just, you don't really gain much. I mean, the presenters are doing, their best, but I mean, it's sort of, you go and you get your credits, and you don't really retain a lot, and it's not really helpful. Is professional development in your field trying to get away from that? Sort of you sit in for a lecture all day, and
that goes back, I think, to what I said earlier about the committee's conversation about doing professional development no longer in a one-size-fits-all format, which is what you're describing in your profession and your experiences. But in really adapting those experiences, giving the teachers, the adult learners, voice and choice over what they're learning and how they learn it.
And maybe this is also the teacher leader concept. I've gotten the most professional development out of sort of being mentored by folks who've been at it for a long time and just doing stuff with them, not necessarily structured, but just sort of, going to certain things in the profession or reading.
Right, I think that's another nice thing that we have here in Newmarket is the teacher mentor program, because it's kind of almost like built-in professional development that occurs on a one-to-one basis. So, new teacher wants the mentor to come in and kind of just watch out what they're doing in class. It's very non-judgmental, it's a very cohesive learning opportunity for both people. But it's interesting that you mentioned that, Mike, because I actually went to a next generation science training for school administrators. It was a year ago, and I'm a former science teacher, and it just knocked my socks off because it was really, you did what they wanted you to be doing with kids.
Yep.
They gave you something and said, figure it out. You got a group of 4 here, you have an hour, figure it out.
Great.
Sort of thing. And then you had to explain your reasoning, your testing, how you tested it, what you thought those results came up with. And that's the same sort of thing we're reaching for our kids to do.
Just on the big picture concept slide, one of the things you have there is resources, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but could you add a little bit more to that in terms of resources? Is it time? Is it funds? It's probably all of the above, but what are, shaking your heads, yeah. Yeah.
One of the challenges for the August training was the budgetary concept. There were people that were very sought after, very successful educators that we wanted to have come that we couldn't afford to have come, sadly. So I think it's both things, and I think it's making time within the schedule, as we found with the student schedule, to allow professional development opportunities for the teachers and educators.
I think there's another.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Because the ones that were combined, she facilitating that.
That'll go away.
It's great
to do that.
Hey everybody, I'm Sarah Dunham, I'm one of the assistant principals up at the high school. So when we were Chris and I and Matt and our teacher leaders were kind of talking about our professional development experiences and everything that we've been doing, we sort of visualized it in a concentric circle model. We had management pieces, we had instruction pieces, and we had learning supports pieces. And all of those kind of align at this sweet spot of where our mission is, to align instruction, management, and learning supports in order to provide teachers with robust and purposeful professional development, which serves to improve student outcomes. And I think what we found is that when we're able to offer some sort of visual, things come together a little bit better.
And as you mentioned before, we're going to try and model some of those in our professional development. So this is a little different program. It's called Prezi, which Sarah is pushing me into a little bit here. So we, as Sarah said, we really talked, after at the building level, after the committee has done their pieces, and we really looked at it in sort of those 3 distinct circles: the management piece, the instructional piece, and the learning support piece. As we jump into the management piece, the first one that we talked about was our special education training with, we're going to go instruction first.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We can move on.
So as we've talked about, and I've been here a few times with members of the CBE committee, we're sort of in the beginning stages of this movement towards competency-based education. And we talked about sort of it being a 5 to 7 to perhaps even a 10-year process, and we're watching our neighbors to the east and west sort of go through the trials and tribulations of that. But again, that competency piece, and Sean touched on it a little bit earlier, was really getting to a point in education where we want to know what kids know and what they're able to do and how they demonstrate it. We go on to the days of there's this empty vessel that we're going to fill when we're ready to release information, and it's letting our fast runners run and work at their own pace. Some of the highlights of that piece, in addition to, as Sean mentioned, the cohort that's joined with SNHU, but we also have had a competency-based team in place at our school for about a year and a half. And that's been a really big piece, and we're able to sort of unveil our first product, which will come out later in June, our work habits rubric. So for those of you who have students at the junior senior high school, that the big push there, or the impetus there, was to pull sort of all those magic eraser type of things that when I was a teacher, you say, well, you know, the kid's kind of at a 78, but he's a really nice kid, and he turns everything in on time, and he never gives me a problem, so he's got a B minus. And so we're trying to take some of that magic out and really quantify it, because it is really important data, but it doesn't belong in grade reporting. And so our team has come up with a work habits rubric that really sort of quantifies those pieces for kids, but takes it away from the grading piece. And so that's a logical first step for us, we felt, as a team and for our school. We'll present the rubric here in June, but we're sort of ready to go with that. And what that will do is take the place of the effort scale that's in the junior senior high school report card, which for the 7 years I've been here, it's a 1 through 6. But it's opposite of CBE, and if you ask 6 different teachers, they tell you that they might use it 6 different ways. So it really gives a quantifiable rubric, and it gives kids something they can sort of dig their teeth into and say, oh, this is something I did really well, and this is how it affected me as a learner.
Chris, didn't we see a draft of that the last
Yes,
time?
from the teacher leader.
Yeah,
I just
so,
want to make sure.
so it's sort of ready to be unfurled. Right now, we're just kind of working on getting it out ahead of time, and then sort of really making sure our teachers. But the biggest piece for this, for us, was what we hear a lot from teachers, and I felt this way myself, is we never seem to finish one initiative before we start the other. So we really made the concerted effort, especially with competency-based education. Our building goal is going to remain pretty similar for next year, and that's important. And that's important for climate culture, but also for people to say, okay, we finally finished something, we can move on to the next thing. But that is the work of many people, a lot of people from different cross sections of our staff. And I think that's important to suss out. And I think Sarah's going to talk a little bit about universal design for learning now.
Which Mr. Pine touched on a little bit. So universal design for learning was brought to us by CAST, and our superintendent, and Erica and Chris Andruski said, write this grant and you should go to this. So we went, and it was actually kind of eye-opening. And the metaphor that they use is, if you're having people over for dinner and you're serving lasagna, you might have Caitlin might be a vegan, and Meredith might be on a low-carb diet, and
Thank you.
Miss McKinney, maybe you don't like cheese. So what do I have to do is I have to make all these different lasagnas.
Everyone has to eat.
Right. So what UDL does is they say, okay, well, why don't we just put all the ingredients out and people can make their own lasagnas? And so we design, the idea is that you're designing learning ahead of time with removing those barriers. There's another really salient example where it's a cartoon and there's a bunch of kids at the bottom of the stairs and there's a wheelchair ramp and there's a student in a wheelchair and the custodian is shoveling the steps, and he says to the child in the wheelchair, as soon as I'm done with the steps, I'll work on the ramp. And another student says, well, if you do the ramp, then we can all get in. So when you design for your least able person, you're really designing for everybody, and you're allowing far better access. So our UDL team is 4 teachers and myself. We go to summits. I think there's 2 or 3 that we went to this year. And we also have an instructional leader who walks us through the removals. And we meet at 6:30 in the morning and watch these videos about how to design learning for engagement and representation. And then she also comes out and we do instructional rounds where we go to each other's classrooms and are able to do kind of a professional learning group. So it's really cool, and it provides us with an opportunity to talk with the elementary school UDL team as well as people from around the state. So it's
Can I
been really great.
interject one thing about that? So when Sean talked about multi-tiered systems of supports, universal design for learning is really about attacking that first tier, the whole classroom, right? So that every student from the beginning has learning experiences that are designed to accommodate the greatest number of children in the classroom. And then you have the additional tiers of intervention to meet the needs of those students who might need a little something more. And it's one of the tenets of competency-based education. So it's not a standalone other initiative that we made up just for fun, but it's because it really is the baseline. It's the foundation of all of our instruction.
And that's why we wanted to use the concentric circle piece, as Meredith said, to make it really clear to folks that these aren't separate initiatives. They all sort of meet in the same place. The other piece, and I think a lot of times in public education, we sort of I don't want to call it a trap, but we fall down that sort of, that rabbit hole of we're designing instruction for those who need the most assistance. The best teachers design for all. And so even though these initial supports might speak to the largest number, your interventions for those who might need more, there's also an equal amount of intervention needed for those who need more challenge. And I think that's something that sometimes gets lost. We worry a lot about bringing everybody up, and sometimes the folks that need extra aren't maybe attentive to that. But in our building, that's something that we've really said, hey, let's not forget about, we still have a top tier too.
And I'll give you another example. I could stand here forever and give you examples. I won't. But there is a student who, Jen Boston, who's now at the 5th grade, did her quizzes on a Google form. And when you do your quiz on a Google form, you can have it read to you. So she provided that to everybody in the class. And it was really just for one student. But what ended up happening is a dozen students went up and got headphones because they all wanted to get in the building using the rail. And that's just what worked for them. So it's kind of that choose your own method of learning. So the next piece is this data-driven instruction. We have kind of realigned the middle school literacy model to do a WIN block, which stands for What I Need. And those are the places where we're going to be offering literacy and math supports that hopefully will be a multi-grade intervention block. We're rolling it out over the next couple of years so that people can get used to it and we can kind of work out the kinks as we go, but it's a really great way to support students.
So what does that look like? So when you say WIN block, does that mean in a block period that there will be teachers in like a different section to support?
What will happen is that right now it'll be the first year, it'll be the 7th and the 8th grade have their literacy blocks, what used to be literacy, together. So it's A block, red A, and there's 90 minutes where students can get enrichment. They can get information on executive functioning if that's what they need. They can get writing support. They can get reading support for half an hour, for 45 minutes, for whatever it is.
And so the groups sort of move fluidly based on need. You may be assigned a group based on something that you need assistance in or something you need support or further rigor in. And that may work sort of in 6 to 8 week segments rather than sort of that it changes every quarter.
Right.
It's sort of responsive to the needs, and it's similar to the multi-tier approach that they're talking about at the elementary school, so it'll sort of all fit in together. It required us to look at schedules a little bit, teacher schedules. It's certainly a more student-centered focus, which is excellent. And it also, one of the nice pieces is if we sort of get it all into play with the middle school side of the schedule, it may free us up to offer a couple more electives at the high school level based on what we have for teaching staff right now. So there was a nice benefit that came out of it, not only for kids, but for all kids and for us as a school.
How will will it be voluntary participation in those enrichments in part, or sort of encouraged or counseled? How?
On the part of the students?
Yeah.
I think that their vision is that they will choose what they want to do. It's really self-driven learning. I know that there is talk of an offering on like how the brain works and how all those wiring and executive functioning and things work.
How might they know what they don't know?
That's where we could be more helpful. And so, like the red A block, for instance, with 7th and 8th grade next year, if you want to talk about that, that's a good example of what there may be some unwilling participants in the beginning because I've got to face the fact that I may not be strong in this area, but I need to get there.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. How might they know what they don't know? We will be working with them. Students will be helping, teachers will be helping students to understand kind of where their weaknesses are through that growth mindset. We've collected a lot of data the past year on state assessments. All the teachers filled out individual transition forms that's a screener of behavioral needs, academic needs, social needs, academic needs, so that we have data on every single student of where they might need help. Right now they're culling that data and kind of trying to build those blocks. Specialized supports might happen then. And then the model would sort of be that the advisory teachers would go over with them and say, here's this area that you really need some improvement, or here's an area where you're really starting to get it, let's push you more.
It sounds great. I mean, because of the recency of it, it comes right after, it's right during school hours, and you can get help then. You're not waiting 24 hours, 48 hours, or when you can make an appointment.
And it's with your teacher in that discipline area more often than not, which is really valuable. we move into the advisory piece for high school, it's a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more of a challenge. So it's, for those of you not familiar, advisory is typically a half hour a day. You typically have the same advisor for your 4-year career. But that window of time really becomes about 20 minutes when you've sort of done all of the executive functioning pieces. So we really look at that as the only time in our schedule right now, because we don't have high school study halls where kids can receive support, or what you would have called with your professors office hours. That's been an area that we sort of have identified as a place that it can happen. There were some growing pains in the beginning when we had to reel it back in, because we had sort of some different people speaking off of different scripts. But as we've started to hone that a little bit, that's a direction we're headed in at the high school level. The time again is a piece that would be nice to find somewhere else. But
Did I hear you correctly that it's an hour a day?
It's a half hour day. I'm sorry. It's a half hour each day between 9 and 9:30, and then if you're a morning SST student, it's not an option for you. So that's a difficult challenge. And if we have an early release or a delayed opening, that can be a day where advisory wouldn't run. And so those are some challenges logistically that we face. And really sort of looking at when other times in the day that can happen. When in a 90-minute block can we sort of stop and say, now's a good time for me to check in with my classes. So
Just to follow up, so am I correct in assuming that each child has an opportunity every day for some period of time for advisory meeting?
yes,
Unless they're
in morning SST at the high school level, which right now is about 48 kids, I believe.
And in that meeting, the teacher and the student discuss where they are, what the needs are, is that correct?
That would be the intent, yes.
Wow.
So that kind of brings us, can I answer that, can I put a hold on that question
Sure
for a
can,
moment? The next thing that we did was we, over the summer, Meredith, Erica, and all of the administrators went to a summit up at Plymouth State. Matt Foster, who's the other assistant principal, and I went to a co-teaching training on co-teaching training for Train the Trainer. And we offered a couple of professional developments through our half days with our staff, with our co-teaching buyouts. Because a lot of research supports that if you're going to implement a co-teaching model, then you need to provide direct and explicit instruction to the people that are going to be doing it. So with the co-teaching model, what that offers is a little bit more of an opportunity for students to access their teachers during advisory time. So maybe there's a special educator and then there's the regular educator in the classroom. They could go to either of them. Of course, obviously there's some growing pains in this, and so our half-day professional development days are going to be focused on everything in this circle. How can we improve instruction? How can we improve our advisory block? How can we meet as co-teachers? How can we refine what's going on with WinBlock? Committees will meet. UDL is a grassroots movement, so we try to get as many people in as we can to talk about that. So that's kind of what our half-day professional development is about, to get those kinds of, those ideals really imprinted on, that's what the advisory block is for, and how do we do that.
It's good to remind ourselves of the goals.
Yeah, every time. The next piece is the management piece. We're lucky enough to have Carol Kuznitsky come and give a whole bunch of trainings for the special educators in our district. Before I was in this position, the administrative team went to a Carol Kuznitsky training to get trained in how to represent the district as what's called the LEA, a person that knows the laws and knows kind of the budgetary confines and the processes a little bit better than the rest of the team, so that we can spread that capacity within our administrative team, which has been great.
When we sort of mapped out what it would look like because this is the first year we've had two assistant principals at both buildings. There could have been a real sort of danger in if we had an assistant principal and Sarah's focus is more on student services, but if you allowed your building to become just that, then we weren't building capacity in ourselves. So it's not uncommon for myself or Mr. Foster to LEA, or act as an LEA for those meetings. And that's really important to not only if there's a scheduling, conundrum, but also just the fact that we can sort of each sort of work with each other and not only hone some skills, but understand some things we didn't understand before, which is kind of exciting just on the learning front, because there are times you can sort of get, in that rut, and so that's been really helpful.
And gaining that perspective, one of my parts of my day is reviewing IEPs before they go home or before they go to the team meetings. So Mr. Foster, Mr. Mazzoni, and I have taken the opportunity to review some IEPs and give feedback to, what do you think of this, and what do you think of this, sort of like a peer review. And I think that's been really helpful in our process. We've also had the advantage to see Dr. Clark, Kim Clark. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and so Pam, actually, I was fortunate. I had her for a couple of classes in some of my postmaster's work, and so she does a lot of work in leadership, supervision, and evaluation. And in addition, she's worked individually with me as a coach, which has been a fantastic experience. One, to just sort of kind of, like I said, set some goals and really kind of reflect on the positives, because there's not a lot of time to do that. Say, okay, what's gone really well this year? And what are some things, in terms of, giving that feedback to sort of somebody who, it's almost like having my own mentor in a way, to sort of kind of have that feedback. So I'm appreciative that that's been provided for me. But also as a group, really looking district-wide at how we're attacking the evaluation and supervision process, how we can support and coach teachers in a better manner, in a more effective manner, how we can hone our own leadership and vision as a group. And I think, I know that I've had conversations with, in our time of transition, as Shana said before, I think that this has been, for us as an admin team, a real key component of just kind of keeping that transition, that consistency as we transition into, whatever our next adventure is together as a group. So that's been really valuable, and Pam she's wonderful. If you hadn't had a chance to meet her, she's really dynamite. So. And then the Bruce Wellman. So it looks like there's a name hanging out there, but Bruce Wellman, we were fortunate enough, and Meredith was astute to say, hey, this might be one of the last trainings. We should get on this, and so Epping hosted us. Epping School District hosted us.
That Bruce offers, because he's approaching retirement, so
Oh.
he's
Yeah.
really cut back some.
So we're like, we got to get,
Not
this
ever.
might be one of the last ones. And so, but to your credit, you said we got to get there. And what I was sort of very happily surprised with, and I know Amy was there, Sean, you were there, was just the way we look at data. And what we used to do is sort of, cull out some data and say, look at these test scores, or we really need to get better at this, or we're really good at this. But the training was meant to help us sort of guide those discussions into, again, more of a collaborative and coaching thing. It allows teams of people to make assumptions or to say, what do I think I'll see? What are the predictions I think I'll see? Rather than having your supervisor or a person whose title it is to share this. It's sort of an everybody process, and it's not personal, and education can become incredibly personal for people, but it's a way to sort of depersonalize the data in a way to inform like what we want to do and how it's helping, and is what we're doing working.
And that's how the WIN block sort of evolved. We met as a middle school team. Allison Boudreau went to the 6th grade science teacher went to the Bruce Wellman training, and I went to her and I said, what did you learn? I'm so jealous that you got to go. And she and I led a conversation with the middle school teachers, and that's how we've used Bruce Wellman strategies or techniques, and that's how we got to the WIN block, which was kind of the way to do it.
And something you said earlier, Mike, was you go to these, sometimes you can go to conferences and it's like death by PowerPoint. But one of the things that it's still stuck in my head is Bruce Wellman, the first day we're there, he said, if you have a group of individuals and you're meeting for an hour, and of that hour-long meeting, the first 20 minutes is reviewing your norms, you have the wrong group of adults in that room. And so that was like the first thing, like, hey, we're here to get some work done. We don't need to spend an hour and a half reviewing our norms. If we all need to get here on time and be professional, let's get to work. And so that was like my favorite takeaway.
One of the questions earlier, I can't remember who asked it, was about resources. And we are really, with the knowledge that we have with our teachers, you heard it from the top 10, we have a lot of talent in our district. And one of our ways that we're planning to access that from professional development is to offer on the 10th, I believe it's the parent-teacher conferences at the elementary schools. These are the learning supports things. We kind of could divide them into 2 different sections. We have the behavioral supports, which Meredith sent me an email about the scholastic learning supports and said, you should probably send a team to this. We haven't had a chance to debrief, that was just last week. The Emotional Behavior Disorders Conference, which Erica sent us to, Blake Neary, the high school case manager, and some folks from the elementary school are doing that. Christina Cochran, who's the assistant principal at the elementary school, trained all of our paras for crisis prevention intervention. So all of our paras are, it's called CPI trained, which is super important for de-escalating situations. Then we have our academic supports. Carol Kuznitsky did our specially designed instruction, which sounds like we should probably know what that is, but the way that she frames it is super helpful for how to run IEPs and how to get those kids where they need to be. We also have a couple of reading instruction, learning support opportunities with Orton Gillingham and then Spire. Then we have Mahesh Sharma, who is, I know the elementary school does a lot of foundational work in concept building with math. At the middle school, we were kind of lacking that, so as a way to teach those concepts. So the idea on our professional development day for October 10th, it's a full day that we have just in our building, is to offer kind of a menu of what you want to do during that day, and there's going to be different presentations for people that have been to these so that we can share that out, because we're putting resources into going to these events, but then it kind of stays.
Right.
So we're trying to disseminate that information and those strategies as much as possible, and that's kind of the focus for October.
That's an excellent use of those resources to get the most bang for those bucks and
Yeah.
time.
And people are excited. You know, when you come back from a workshop, and the next day your teacher, you're like, oh shoot, she went to a workshop. So trying to harness some of that excitement and spreading it among people in professional environments. That's kind of it.
I love the analogy, the ramp and the stairs. I think that is, if you use that to talk about competency-based education, it makes so much sense when you think about it. Because I'm seeing it now more in the classrooms, and that pulled it all together for me. So can't explain it to you guys, but
Good analogy.
It really is.
Questions?
I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm excited to see it.
Quick question. I mean, this seems like great. It seems like a lot of work. Is there any thought given to how, and you may have already done this, and I don't know about it, communicating this out to parents and kind of what's happening on that front? Because it's.
I'll be honest, I haven't given that much thought.
Yeah. No, it's meaningful.
May.
I mean, I think.
But it's a good thought.
To fill up your day even more,
I was
right?
gonna say one more
Well,
thing.
no, but I think, as a parent, sometimes I am in Dover. What are they doing on these professional development days? What do you guys use in there? So it might be worth having a presentation or part of it at, maybe not as extensive as the concentric circles, but, we can add that into our parent night. I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, folks can, hear the presentation, but realistically, I'm not sure that they're doing that, but.
Right,
but
I think it should be absolutely part of what we're offering at open house or school information day.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're on to school nutrition.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good. So I'm probably just going to do some reading, and I'll stop after every little segment, and then if you have a question, you can ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We're into review season for me, so it's a little intense. So let me tell you a little about our program, which you might not know. The National School Lunch Program is governed by the USDA. We are monitored by the Department of Education through the Food and Nutrition Program. So basically, all of our professional standards, so we too have professional days, and ours are USDA mandated. We don't have a lot of wiggle room.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's very structured. Things for menus that I can and can't have. We have procurement, 3 bids and a buy. I have to buy within the USA. I do farm to school. Our CEUs must be accredited. We attain these usually on weekend conferences. And then there's a big national one that's held during the summer that I've gone to. So all of our items that are sold must meet the USDA requirements. I don't know if you remember back a few years ago, it was called the Healthy Hunger Kids Free Act, a big Michelle Obama push. That's when everything became low-fat content, 51% whole grain items, low sodium, anything sold a la carte, including chips, popcorn, anything has to meet the smart snack standards set by USDA. Yes, you can't go to a grocery store and buy our chicken patty. Our chicken patty is made with whole grain. It has certain requirements that have to be met. Manufacturers like Tyson, Rich Chicks, Advanced Pierre have to make these chicken patties especially for us, for the school lunch program, which is nationwide. It's just one of the things that has to be done.
Can I just jump in there, Linda, while you take a breath? Even cereal is like that, and I know that was something that Ingrid brought up last year, right? Oh, how can you sell, I don't know, Fruit Loops? It wasn't Fruit Loops, but along those lines, right?
Really funny.
That's one of the questions, but again, it's whole grain, it's the low sugar.
It's low,
yeah.
The guidelines are so intense.
It's almost like the WIC program. Like it's almost.
It is so structured.
Yeah.
There is no wiggle room, as you'll find out.
Ways, absolutely. That is also very restrictive
This year,
about the nutrition guidelines.
This year right here is 1 week's worth of a menu. In here is all the nutritionals, the manufacturer's product certification. And then there's the exemption that they have to give me that says everything that went into making that chicken patty is all from the U.S. None of it comes from anywhere else. I have to prove this on my review next week, hence that package. Everything is very structured. The oil, oh, don't do that.
Like all that, but this is
everything. So every little thing that you can think of is so regulated, it would scare most people not to go into school food service. It's really a.
Well, they're lining up, right, Linda?
You know, they really aren't. So just as a thing, like today, at the elementary, they had fresh green beans, they had fresh broccoli. Oh, I think what else? They made homemade rolls. They had strawberries and apples, along with mozzarella sticks with marinara sauce. Well, those mozzarella sticks, once again, you cannot walk into any store and buy these. These are made specifically for the school lunch program. So once again, the batter is whole grain. The cheese inside is low salt and low fat.
So when I say to you, why does a growing boy only get 3 mozzarella sticks?
Because you're calorie regulated also.
So it has nothing to do with
me.
You.
No. No.
Or just any cafeteria.
Everything I serve is calorie regulated, sodium regulated, and saturated fat regulated. And I have to keep track of these, and it goes on a weekly total. And as I do this gigantic spreadsheet for USDA, you get at the bottom, it goes, 8 to 10 protein. Good. Oh, look, I can only have 8 to 9 ounces of grain. I have 9.25. I got to take one away. All right, I'll figure that out later. Oh, look, I've got all my vegetables in my component there, which has subgroups. I have to have so much leafy green. I have to have so much red or orange. I have to have so many legumes every week.
Yeah.
Yes, it's my nightmare.
Yeah,
and then you get down, and all of a sudden you look at the calorie, and you go, oh my gosh, I'm 4 calories short. Because every school, K through 5, is different from 6 to 8 and 9 to 10. It's all calorie and
I can't just stick butter on there, right?
Oh, we don't have butter.
Oh.
We had fresh corn today at the high school, and this young man, he goes, I don't suppose we have butter and salt, do we?
But you think about how difficult this would be even in your own household, right?
Yeah.
Even just for one meal, to try to have everything in your meal so regulated by calorie, by all
you're
that
so
content.
Restricted, and it's kind of an amazing restriction they really do.
Linda,
on
I think
us.
it's so important that you're telling this story. Like, I don't think people realize. I mean, how long have I been here, and how long have I listened to this spiel? And it's just dawning on me now when I just compare it to the.
And I think for a lot of people, when you have growing kids that are they're doing athletic things.
Yeah.
That calorie restriction for a K through 5, it's 550 to 650 on that meal. They might be going to soccer after school or something else. They
jump rope.
That's really not a lot of calories. But
You're
once
welcome.
again, I've got that. So our food service department also belongs to a statewide buying group, cooperative buying group within the state. It's a group of about 60 school districts. We have a buying power right now of about $7 million. So that case of peaches I get that are not packed in any sugary, because I can't have that, cost me about $35 to $40. If I was not in the buying group, this would be a $70 item. I use 3 cases every time you see peaches put on the menu. So we have a large buying power. They also do a lot of my procurement for me. So they go out to bid for, are we going with PFG, Cisco, who are we going with? They've done my produce bid. They've done we just did, opening day for paper bid was Tuesday, so we were all there for that.
Right, you can imagine that a larger district might be able to take that on its own, but for New Hampshire, where most of the districts are
Most
smaller.
of the districts are small. I mean,
that
we're
would
in
be
there with
so
schools like
cumbersome.
Nashua and Portsmouth and Epping, and we all have the power to buy this. I mean, to me, it's a great thing. And then we receive government commodities. Now, I know back in the day, but our beef is 85 to 90% lean beef. Our cheese and everything is low fat, low sodium. Anything they give us is low fat and low sodium and low in calories. And all the fruit is not packed with sugar. We cannot have any corn syrup or anything like that in any of the fruit we serve. We're not allowed. It's another one of those nice
This
little
sounds so unappetizing.
Well, I think when you think of the commodities from 20 years ago, though, people have an unappetizing image in their head
you
from
have
that,
you know,
too.
that mystery meat little mindset. It's not anymore.
Fried bologna.
Those were a great. I've had yes, definitely.
So can I?
Sure, go right ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, we're doing the push in the classroom is for sort of, follow the child, individual learning. Why wouldn't it be the same in the lunchroom? I don't want to complicate your day, but
Why wouldn't you look at a kid who's gonna go play soccer and say?
It's like
one of the things that
or that or
I think it might have been one of the new superintendents was talking about had actually talked to a student, and he was heading to a game, and one of the things he said was, I'm getting done with school, I'm hungry, there's nothing for me to get, we're closed. I do have a thing in place for athletic meals, but I don't really have the staffing to be able to do this.
And he certainly, or she could certainly bring it with them. Right?
Exactly, that's what a lot of, Epping actually tried it for a while. It took off good in the beginning, and then it sort of petered a little bit. But once again, it's all about staffing for it.
Yeah.
It's somebody making meals and staying there after hours and making sure the kid has it to get on the bus.
Well, I was suggesting something different when they come in and look at a knapsack. Certainly, if he or she is headed to a soccer game, they could eat something that they brought with them.
Except where do they keep it all day?
Yeah.
Where do they keep it all day?
I have that in mind, like additional calories if you have another activity. But I was also thinking like vegetarian, vegan, there may be different, folks having different.
They have, usually every meal is extra, it's not just one meal.
Right.
There's usually 2 meals.
Okay.
And a lot of kids that you will find with either one of the managers at either school, if you came in and you looked at everything and you go, ooh, and they're gonna see you do that, ooh, and they'll call you over. What's up?
I see.
I don't really, they will tell you, if you can wait a minute, we'll have a discussion, and they can usually come up with something else for that student.
But we do accommodate health needs. That's part of the responsibility.
That's another, I'm regulated by that too. I'm regulated by everything. It's kind of a great thing. So then I'll talk about why my prices are what they are. That's called paid lunch equity. It's PLE. I actually just received it last week. And that's when Meredith usually comes to you and say, hey, we gotta go up on lunch prices. So this is, once again, regulated by USDA. I receive $3 an X amount for a free lunch, but I'm charging Johnny $2.75 or $2.95. The government does not like to see the free student supplementing the paid student, so it's trying to bring the paid student up to the free student. So when you put all the numbers into the formula, their table, it says how much you need to go up. You as a school board honestly could say, No, we're not gonna go up on lunch prices. Here's the flip to it. The district then pays the extra for every child that ate.
Every meal.
So if it was 10 cents that the lunch had to go up, the district pays the 10. Newmarket is not a district that can afford to do, there's very few in the state that would actually really do that. So our district review is next week. This is when
It's a
the
big
Department of
deal.
Ed comes down and goes over everything for every penny I've spent, where I've spent it. Have I done procurement right? 3 bids and a buy? Am I buying everything within the USDA? That's why I have to prove it. Are my calories correct? It is an intense, and are we having our proper professional development? They hit us all on everything. There's no,
How long has this been the case?
for everything I have to do now, it changed pretty much, it started changing in 11, 12. And every year, the requirements got a little deeper and a little deeper. We actually have one more sodium round they want to go. They're trying to stop it because basically there'll be no salt in anything. We're actually, right now, they're looking at a grain cutback so that I would be able to make sure that 51% of all grains I sell are whole wheat, instead of all my stuff being whole wheat. And that would definitely change pizza crust, pasta, and the hot dog roll. Because all I can get is a Coney Island hot dog roll made in whole wheat. They don't make a New England style. And I like a New England style hot dog. Just so you know that.
Federal program visits, Linda, just so people understand, they come every 3 to 5 years.
They used to come every 5 years, and then USDA thought, no, we're gonna make you go out every 3 years just to double check on everybody, and so DOE picks X amount of schools, and here they come. So 3 years ago, they did the junior, senior high, and now they're here to do the elementary. They're hoping to change it back to 5 years, because what they're finding out, small states like New Hampshire do not have the manpower to be hitting.
Yeah.
I mean, the packet I have sent them already is enormous, and what she's going to do while she's here is another enormous part. And so that takes 2 to 3 days every week that they're in a school.
So what happens if you're, I mean, the degrees of out of compliance, but what
So
happens
out
if
of
you're?
compliance, so you'll get a corrective action.
Uh-huh.
You have a choice. A lot of times the corrective action could be, oh my gosh, you didn't have your certificate hanging on the wall where everybody could see it, only certain people could see it. If you correct it there, then they write, was corrected while I was there. Then there could be others too.
Yeah, there may be things like training, and you have a certain amount of time in which that needs to be completed.
Right, there was
or
I'm talking with my peers right now that have just had theirs. We had one technical, there's no more technicals, it's corrective and financial, those are the only type of things we get now.
So other than, the administrative burden, which seems great, I mean, do you think this has moved the ball in the right direction, all of this?
I'd like to see it cut back just a hair. I think taking part of that grain back away would be nice. I don't want to see the sodium one go up one more. It really, and think of it as Tyson and the chicken patty you're supplying the nationwide for the school food service program. They have to reformulate that. Every time something changes, they reformulate. At one time, we had 6 different chicken patties.
Are prices going up because of it?
Yes, you pay more for that because it doesn't sell to the general public.
Yeah.
So it's not a win-win. I mean, for the children, the difference in the calorie, really, the fat, maybe yes, there is a big difference.
And I think the challenge is you're competing against what is sold commercially,
Right,
right?
so
And so students have acquired a taste for the more processed
Your son
foods
comes in and
potentially,
he's used
and they'll
to-
say no thank you to the school
Right.
lunch.
So it's kind of an
Right.
unintended consequence.
So your son's used to
Yeah.
pizza here in town. Then he comes in and gets pizza from us and goes, oh,
Yeah.
oh, I'll just go, oh.
Doesn't have all that extra salt and
No,
sugar.
there's not
and
extra sauce, and where's that?
even though it's better for them, they can't
But we all know
identify
how
that.
taste buds are, and we're used to certain things.
So have you noticed that over?
Yes.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, you can. It is noticeable. It's there's not much I can do.
Is there feedback for that on the survey?
I've actually done one at the high school a couple of years ago, in a Google form, and I sent it out to all the students, and I had a very interesting feedback back from that. And it really is the food. I want to say that on TV. But anyway, yes, it's a very different, that's a very different taste. Yes,
Yeah.
it's very different.
Well, I'm just, you know, maybe this is beyond,
Well,
but
so think of eating that ear of corn
Yeah.
today.
I-
It was fresh corn. It came
Yeah.
up from down south.
yeah.
You want to put salt on yours? It's a butter.
It's a butter.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If your kid was at the high school today, nicely steamed,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, but yeah.
Okay.
So, so I want to talk about buying local. We do buy local. Both of my produce, I buy from PFG North Center, which is up in Augusta, and our produce bid was given to Mark Saunders over in Somersworth. So we try to buy a lot of our food as local as we can. Number one, Uncle Sam likes you to do that, and so we try. Local for us is the whole Northeast, Pennsylvania, New York, and up, because our growing season, we really don't have it. I also deal with New Hampshire Gleans. I don't know if you know about them, but if there's a farmer and he's done with his gardening, these people come in and they pull the potatoes, the extra potatoes, they pull the beets, they take the apples. I was saving $160 a week in apples by driving up to Farmington to pick up apples from New Hampshire Glean. She brought us 150 pounds of potatoes in time for Thanksgiving meal. Potatoes at the elementary school were real potatoes. And the beets were done up and children had beets, something you usually don't see in a school lunch program. But Kelsey McDonald is her name, and she works really close with a bunch of schools around here. So we try to do local and they usually will tell you where your stuff's coming. Like cucumbers, our cucumbers come from Mexico. I have to get an exemption to get my cucumbers from Mexico. Grapes, our grapes come from, I believe it's Chile. I have to have an exemption in order to give your kids grapes. And pineapple does not come from the USA either. I have to have an exemption for pineapple. So you can see there is a lot involved in getting all of this. So Meredith, the principals, and I, we've been working on also collecting outstanding debt. It's been an ongoing process. We've taken it up we've kind of tried to kick it up a notch. And we've been working on it pretty diligently, and I think we're making some progress.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a new challenge,
No.
I think, but I think we've seen sort of escalations in unpaid balances over the last several years, and so, we do our best to kind of offer all available alternatives to children and families who may need some support or payment plans or workarounds, but at the same time, part of our job is also to make sure the food service program is reimbursed for its expenses. So
that's why the district has to pay that bill at the end, because Uncle Sam wants to know, I can't give out things free. Yeah. It's federal money. We got to get paid for it.
Yeah, and we understand, the federal poverty guidelines are pretty clear.
There's no wiggle room there either.
And yet we know that there are families who are sometimes on the cusp of that, right? They might not qualify for
Right.
free and reduced lunch, but they may still be struggling. And so again, we would just reiterate that there is support available. We're willing to work with families on those issues.
And a lot of districts have very different charging policies. I don't know if it's something you want to look at some point, but
Your charging policy allows a negative $50 balance to accrue before people are sort of notified that they're going to lose access.
I basically...
They're notified along the way.
Right. So basically, if you owe me $1, you're probably getting an email every other day from NutriKids saying, hello, you owe me $1.
Or if your balance is even low.
Yes. My school bucks will do that to you. Yes, they will. Now they'll even let you know you owe. Then for younger kids, they will get a letter in a backpack, sealed letter. Then every so often it's a giant mailing. So pretty much from the time you owe $1 all the way, depends. I'll mail after 20 usually. And then once we're escalating to the 50, I usually give a list to the principals and then on to Meredith. And they do phone calls. They also try.
So at 50, does that child then not get a lunch? Or because you have to keep feeding children.
We don't. they can't continue to charge, and so they either have to come with money to purchase the lunch. It doesn't have to be used to pay down the debt. That's pretty clear in the law and in the policy. So they can't accrue any more debt, but they can still purchase lunch. If they come without payment, again, food service isn't in a position to allow them to charge any further, but there may be a mechanism through the principal depending on the circumstances.
Right.
But it,
But I would assume a child would not be denied a meal.
they could be depending on the circumstances.
Really?
How often does that happen, if it does?
I had it happen once. I asked the young lady, we were in a situation, and I asked her if she could please go to the office. She came back with a note for me, and she received her lunch.
Oh, so it's not like a rip-roaring problem. I mean,
No.
the debt can be an issue, but in terms of people
They know.
risking denial, we're
And
only
the thing,
talking about one.
and
'Cause
once they've started getting her letters, it's been made very clear to the parents that and a lot of these kids do have their own money from working jobs, and I'm just kind of stuck by following.
Right.
So they get the letter from Meredith. They don't respond.
It's not just, so there goes one letter, then she
Right.
does another letter, then she does another letter. It's,
Yes.
Yes.
And
That's
the
certified
sad thing is,
mailing.
though, wonder if this is nobody's fault except us who vote. How do we make sure that all our kids are getting fed? How do we make sure that program's not being taken advantage of? Like, there's all these things.
And I think that's why we
lot
work
of-
together.
A lot of discussion that needs to go on behind.
Yeah.
And
we don't just automatically send out those letters and assume the worst, right?
Right.
We have a lot of conversation with principals, with nurses, with counselors,
Guidance and-
So you have
with
an
food
idea.
service.
Right.
So we try to get a sense of are there
Food service,
circumstances.
We tend to hear a lot.
Yeah.
Children love to talk to my managers. They're very,
Yeah.
they love to talk. So the managers, a lot of times will hear a lot, which then go either to guidance or to the principal with what
Okay.
they've heard.
And I think that's one of the benefits of having smaller schools,
Yeah.
because people are talking to people that can then take that information to the appropriate places, so we don't get to a situation
Right.
where people are being denied things when it's not the child's fault.
And I think my manager at the elementary school, she's yay tall. Elementary school, think of this, kindergartners, they're yay tall.
Yeah.
So I will sit at a register so I can talk to them this way. Well, she doesn't sit. She scooches. That's a lot of scooching she does during the day. Because we de-escalate a lot of things. You know, you have a student that's really having a bad day and he's coming, you can just see on his face, he's just about ready to implode, and my managers are really good at taking that student and finding out what can we do in here to make your day go better. You know, and sometimes it's just a matter, he thought today was supposed to be pizza and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, I can't quite pull that one out, but what can we do? You know, she'll sit there, what can we do? What will make you have a better day? One of her biggest things is about eating. She's currently sitting, I think, 148 breakfasts a day at the elementary school, which is really awesome. The elementary school allow you to get breakfast from about a little before 8 until 10:30. So at snack time, students are still, they're coming down and, as Jen will call it, they're putting gas in the gas tank so they can stay focused and be able to learn.
And one of the most impressive things that I've seen, and there have been many that you guys have done in the food services, but I was on a field trip when we were going off campus for the day, and there was a student who gets breakfast at school, and she was a little bit tardy, but given the extra time, she was able to have it before we got on the bus to start her day the right way.
Right.
So
It's
we
a,
appreciate it.
it's a nice, it's one of the nicest things, once again, a small school, where one of the things when you go to a conference, one of the greatest things that we all talk about as food service directors is the fact that our staff know almost every child by name. I had a kid today at the high school said he wanted to know what was on his account, and I just punched in his name, and he goes, really, do you know everybody? And I said, well, I used to know a lot more of you, but I kind of lose track at a certain point, but no, I knew you. And so that's another great part of being in a small school district. You know, both my managers can go to a principal at any moment or say, can we talk? and they have that, which is,
And the nice thing too is because we all know now that there are kids that leave on Friday, they
that
might
do
not eat.
We work well with and 68 hours of hunger
Yes.
also.
Yeah.
So what happens when you get when you send in a free and reduced form to me, you're apt to get the paperwork for that also that I send home for her to that family. Not as many junior, senior kids take it as I wish. I'd like to see it more. Want to have a discussion with Melanie about what's really being offered and how to maybe make it change a little, but those that take it need it.
Does your
I think
staff
students
do
might
that?
have some
My
insight.
staff at the high
That
school
too.
do hand it out.
Oh, it would be interesting if maybe we could even have the nurse start doing it.
We had that.
It didn't work well. Okay.
We found it a lot easier that a student can literally walk in and just, they know that's theirs, they just
Okay.
walk in and they take it and they leave with it.
Okay.
It
worked better, all right.
Yeah, at the elementary school, I believe what Sean does is he has it all and it's on a cart and it's gone, it's distributed into their cubbies, so they have it that way. It's harder for the other kids. So basically, the bags arrived today, they're all sitting on a side. Those students will come through, they will take their bag and put it in their backpack. I think it's a lot more about
Yeah.
not
Can it be
being
a gym
seen.
bag?
Right.
Can it be, like
But
it's the disguise?
the bag they're usually taking is a black bag. It's pretty obvious as to what's probably in it, and some kids don't care, some really do, because that's just how that can be sometime. So now we're going to talk about one of the things I really love so much is the garden. So we've always worked very well with Nancy Miller, Penny Allard, and Lisa O'Brien with the Garden Club. So she started out very small, and then she got bigger, and I would go up during the summers and I would weed and water. My manager would go up and weed and water. So it was like a joint collaboration, because growing up gardening all my life, to me that's a great learning thing for students. It's math, science, as Sean said. It's something really great. Well, then here comes the Adreno and here goes the garden. My manager's husband came home with the Bobcat and a trailer and took their organic soil, and it's sitting in between our houses right now, waiting to come back. So we saved the organic soil. But then in my head I was thinking, what do you do for the garden club now? It's all gonna be on paper and you need your hands. I got a grant from NCEP and we had little mini gardens that ran off water.
Yeah.
Then along came Alice and Dean. Now, my original thing, what I really wanted was a tower garden, because that's what they have over in Kittery. Wendy Chase has one, and it's right outside her kitchen, and they just help themselves. Well, that was a little more out of our price range than we thought. But Alice and Dean stepped in because she has one of these in her house. You now have 3 of them at the elementary school.
I saw them, yeah.
Those things are amazing. So we do get product from them. Granted, it's not a ton to feed an entire school, but we get some. She is currently working once again with the PTA and looking at getting 3 more. And we've asked her if we could have them maybe in the CAF. So they would be seen, any parent coming in, or maybe in the lobby, somewhere where they are also seen by parents and all students. I think you might have one in.
We share in kindergarten, and my kids
Always.
were really upset when I shared. But yes, it was such a great learning thing.
And it's
We grew
also,
a salsa
like you
garden.
said, it's science.
It's
have
science, it's math, the whole, and that's what I love about gardening for students, and to have any of that cooperated into.
And then to eat it, because they
And then
also
to
say
eat
they
it.
make it, they see it, they'll eat it.
Right, because her garden was really great, and then she got bigger, and it was really good, and then one day that little rascal woodchuck found everything, and that was the end of that. But so she's hoping that when we roll out, she'll be able to have something with fencing and all of that.
Or the bears there, maybe he'll eat them.
Yeah, no bears. It's Bambi. I have Bambi. It's called the Linda Hopi Buffet out in my yard. So one of the other things I really want to do, I believe I sent you all an email to come and visit our kitchens.
Yes.
I really wish, contact any of my managers, me. We'll gladly open up for you, bring you in, come when kids are there, whatever you'd like. And I want to thank Sean and Chris, the the principals, and Brian and Jamie, the janitors. During our moves and up, things had to move fast and quick, and it was quite the process, and those four people were just wonderful, wonderful help. I had a look of total despair one day when Randy Edgerly saw me in the office, and he says, "What do you need from me? What can I do to help?" So there's a great collaboration between all of your staff and us. They really do work very well as a team. They care about each other and all only basically for your students. So, any questions?
I do have a few, so forgive me because I know we've talked about this before, so
That's
you're gonna
all right.
remind me. Could we have like a snack cart? Again, we have all those restrictions, but which is messy, and Jamie and Brian will probably kill me, but you can sell popcorn and frozen yogurt or that
So
kind
at the
of-
high school, they go out at advisory. At 9 o'clock, a cart goes upstairs. Now with the new kitchen, and we can't really.
It's a little tricky right now.
We're kind of in a
But
It's
maybe
weird, 'cause we don't
next
have
year at this
cafeteria.
time.
Yeah.
but a cart going out, at what times would it go out? So it can only really go at advisory, the
Right.
beginning of advisory, so that's when they have the one upstairs. So there's usually some hot food, there's bagels, there's wrapped things, there's fresh fruit, there's the
Yeah.
milk, there's juice.
I remember Cameron's the only one who's ever bought lunch, but I remember him buying bagels all the time. But I know that at Exeter we have popcorn and frozen yogurt, and I just didn't know, is there an upfront cost, and again, the mess.
Those guys, both Brian and Jamie, are very. So Cindy was shucking corn. One of her things was, "Can we cook the corn in its husk?" And I go, "Of course you can. You just soak it and you cook it. You can." I go, "What are you going to do with it?" She says, "Well, I'm going to put it on the tray and have the kids husk their own in the calf." I said, "I thought you liked Jamie."
I know.
You know, and then it's like, "Oh, don't do that to that poor man. He
No.
likes us, you know."
God, can you
Yeah.
imagine?
So, it's.
It's just a thought, because I know, like, it's 25 cents to make a bag of popcorn, and then you sell it at $1.50.
Right.
Profit, right?
Mm-hmm. And popcorn now is credible. It actually credits as a grain.
So
that just came down the pike.
As long
So
as
I
you
can
don't
actually
add
put it
the
on your
salt
meal.
and the butter.
There's no salt, no butter.
there's a flavored, there's
Yes.
flavored something.
Yes, there is.
It tastes really good. It's maple something. It's really good.
Oh, it might have sugar in it though.
It's maple sugar though,
Yes,
so I
it
don't think
is.
it's the same. Because
It's
we can have
different.
that. Yeah, and we have something else. But it's a moneymaker, right? I mean, I
It
see
really
kids
is.
line
But once again,
up.
you have to have a staff that can
Exactly.
produce
Yeah.
it.
You've
and-
got to sell enough to offset the
I
cost
was
to,
gonna say, so that
to
would
make
take
it,
care of
which
all the
is
money.
Right.
maybe
And-
more feasible in a high school the size of Exeter than
Right.
in a smaller school.
Or do you have it, do you get the machine, do regulations, and then have kids, part of a learning collaborative, they learn money, they learn how to customer service.
Kind of like an SST with the whole cookie thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Are they whole grain?
No, they're not.
Do they count as 3/4 of a grain, or
They're not in
Sorry.
the nutrition program.
So, but I mean, that's something that, again, something we can look at down the pike, that's something, because we're doing this learning.
What I believe Epping, I think it's Epping that has this, so she buys the snacks, and I forget who goes out and sells it. She sells it to them at an upcharge. I can't sell you anything at cost to me, I have to
Right.
upcharge you. And it's, so something else is getting out there that meets all, because you can't sell anything in the school and compete against me either.
That's, because that's why I remember something with that, with the ice cream or something, right?
Oh, yeah.
I just can't remember.
Yeah,
Well,
there's a lot.
this was fun.
So anytime, just drop me an email.
Thanks,
and
Linda.
you'll
Thank
see-
you, Linda.
And you'll see that, you know, I've gone gray.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay.
Wait, Linda, does that mean if they go back on the grain, we get the rolls back?
If they roll back that grain, yes, I will be buying New England style hot dog rolls, and I will
No.
be going with white pizza crust.
The good rolls I hear all about all the time.
Oh, those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we get those back?
Yes.
Okay,
I'll
good.
go back to making those.
Call me.
Thank you again. All right, so next, Caitlin, you're going to be off to bigger and better things. Not, I know about better. but bigger classes. Yeah, bigger one-on-one classes to start anyways, but just we wanted to thank you for informing us this year about what's going on within the schools, and appreciate it. We got a little gift for you. I think it's appropriate, and yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Do I open it
Oh,
now?
you got it, yeah.
Should I do the card first?
Sure.
Now you can open this.
Okay. Wow, very fitting. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because you won't have any money to buy that for yourself.
That's right. I know, right? Especially with those tuition costs.
Speaking of
Thank you
food
so
at
much.
UNH, it's so much better than when I went there. It's just, my God.
So I've heard, yes, yeah. And probably better than what we just heard about. Won't have as many regulations.
I don't know if they're quite, no,
Yeah.
I don't think so. But,
Thank you.
yeah.
Chicken patties. All right.
No, you don't have to read it, but,
So I won't read it.
and
I'll read it.
likewise, Jen, you're gonna be leaving us soon. Wanna thank you for, I don't know how you sit there and listen to us and take all those notes. I can't chew gum, and
How many years, Jen?
it's been a long time.
Long time.
Sad.
Many
So-
And babies.
Great, so thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah,
But this isn't the last one, is it? No. Don't scare me.
no. Caitlin, if you've got tests or whatever, you're welcome to stay, but if you've got,
Got some scholarships to
I-
do, so.
yeah, I would think so.
Best
Thank-
wishes.
Thanks
again.
Thank you.
Best wishes.
And I think I will be seeing you guys one more time.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah,
Well, obviously, but
yep,
with some new members, hopefully.
Great.
Oh, great. Yeah.
awesome.
Have a wonderful night.
You too. All right, so draft data governance plan, we have that
Yeah,
in
so
front
I've
of us.
provided you the draft. It's marked confidential. It's still a work in progress, and some pieces of it will not be subject to public conversation because it talks about how we secure our data and the privacy interests of our students and staff. But the data governance plan is required by HB 1612. It's, again, to protect staff and student personally identifiable information as well as health information, make sure that that is secure. We are in the midst of a data security audit. We've brought in a group out of Maine. Jason, I think, may have mentioned that. I know we've talked about it before. They're still interviewing folks in the district who have access to some of that data, trying to understand what our systems are so that they can give us some suggestions. And as we've mentioned, there will be some cost items that come out of that. But hopefully there'll be ones you can sort of meet out over time. We are working with other districts through the New Hampshire CTO Council, which is the chief technology officers of the school districts around the state. And so this governance manual really is a large product of the work of those districts, and in particular the work of the technology director in Bedford. And then Jason and I have done work to kind of go through and fill in the Newmarket portions of that. So it would be helpful between now and the next meeting for you to take some time and read through it. Let me know if there are questions, and then Jason will join us for the next meeting for public portions and, if needed, for non-public portions to talk about some of the information in the appendices. That's it.
All right, and then review of program assurances for FY20. We've got that in here.
You do.
That's rich reading.
So we receive funds from the federal government to support a variety of federal programs. You just heard about the school nutrition program, but there are also program funds that we receive, and you budget for those dollars as a part of your budgeting process every year. And there are a variety of those programs. One is Title I, and our Title I program primarily supports reading and math intervention at the elementary school. We are a targeted assistance school, so that means we have to go through a selection process, or identification, I should say, process, to identify sort of the lowest quartile of students in the lower grades who are eligible for intervention, and then we provide that targeted assistance to those students through that program. And there are a number of regulations attached to that. Title 2A is what we have used historically largely for professional development, and it's professional development both for teachers and administrators. And there's some, again, guidance around all of these in here, but it tells you all of the pieces we have to comply with. And again, it's also true for these programs that the dollars available to us through these grants have to supplement what we already provide in the district. They can't cover our costs. So we can't say, oh, we're getting 40,000 from Title 2A, that's all we're gonna budget for professional
Right.
development. Title III is to support our English language learners. And we are in a consortia of other districts to use those funds. We are actually the financial overseer for those funds with the other districts at this point. But it's a relatively small number of dollars in $5,000 range. It's actually a little bit less than that on an annual basis, but it is money that we can use to supplement the programs for our English language learning students. And we do that through summer programs, after-school programs, cultural activities, etc. Title IV Part A was here and gone, and it's been back again over the last couple of years. We used it, it was last year written only for robotics at the state level, and so we applied for funds for that. We've talked to you about some of that. This year, those funds have been moved into our professional development funds. We reallocated those dollars to be part of our Title II grant, and that's helping to support our summer CBE work in Exeter again. And next year, we've, through the budgeting process, we discussed having those dollars go to help support the social worker, because the focus of that grant is really sort of whole child, whole student. And so we're required to make sure that the board is fully apprised of these regulations. It's a new requirement as part of some of the federal oversight and review of the state programs. So we ask that you read those, and with your blessing, we will sign off and return these to the state.
It was tough reading. I read it. Again, it was almost as good as policies.
Better.
Yeah.
Living the dream.
Yeah. Meredith, do you need a motion from us tonight on that? Would that?
We don't need a motion.
Next meeting, or just to prove and?
Yeah, I think we just need to document that we have discussed it, that it's been part of our agenda.
I see. Okay.
We're all set.
All right. Any questions on those? Okay. And then the next thing is the link together facilities use request. We saw that last meeting, and Al did some communication with the link together folks. And Al, you want to just brief us on that?
Greg and I met with Bree late last week, and the purpose of the get-together was to find out whether the current fee of $275 was appropriate from their standpoint and from ours. And Bree's position was that Linked Together is increasing in its enrollment fairly significantly, which is positive, and that any increase in fee would be, certainly they would do it, but they would prefer to keep it where it is now due to increasing coverage, enrollment. Based on the new policy, nonprofit organizations like Linked Together may not be charged to facilitate a rental per rental agreement, but may be charged an impact fee, which is based on use. Greg put together some numbers, and the $275 he felt would be adequate to cover that use. And Bree needs a response from us fairly quickly because of insurance coverage. And I think that, and I spoke with Mike about this earlier this week, the rental agreement doesn't seem to be appropriate anymore. It needs to be rewritten as a use permit of some kind, and I don't know whether we need to get.
So actually, Al, if I can add to that,
Sure.
I think I think it should be adequately covered under a new policy with this.
Yep.
I mean, I think this is, and I had forgotten about this when we spoke, but I think this is really, even for, Link Together or any other organization, really what what we'll probably do going forward.
It's just that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is enough for them, I think, to get
Yeah.
their insurance and
I think so too.
you know,
There was some complication because in the past they had worked under a rental lease agreement.
yeah, that's right, and it was very, and it was in our packet last time, and I reread that as well.
Yeah.
In comparing it to our, a newer use, the facilities guidelines and procedures. We're covering everything in this that we, pretty much covered in that contract, so.
Yep. So it seems like a pretty,
Yeah.
It's good standing for both the school and for Link Together and the agreements.
Well, in the
somewhat.
community too. This is
No
a-
question.
Yeah, it's
Ree-
really important to us.
Quite candidly, Ree had great concerns that there would be some major change on Link Together, and we assured her that was not the case.
And Meredith, you may know, I forgot in our policy, I don't know, is the school board needs to sign off on a waiver of, it's not really,
No,
it's a
we're
wa- it's not a
asking you to
waiver.
approve, there's a memo in the packet.
Yep. Okay.
We're asking you to approve this agreement
Mhm.
as described in the memo at $275 per month for the first year to, the recommendation, and you can only approve it a year at a time under our policy.
Yep.
Would be $285 a month for the second year and $295 a month for the third year, which is, again, that's for later.
Yep.
But to approve the impact fee, as Al's describing it, or usage fee, at $275 a month for the 2019-2020 school year. And then Greg, on your behalf, or I can sign off on the facilities use form.
Got
You might wanna change that option here too to $285,000 to just $285.
Fair enough.
That's, yeah,
That
that's,
might have freaked Rhea, that might have upset Rhea a little bit.
It's missing a zero, it just is, yes.
so, seek a motion, to approve, as per the memo of May 15th, the, Link Together agreement.
For $275 for only this year. So
Right.
moved.
Second.
If there's no discussion, all those in, yep,
One thing I want
yep.
to say, Mike, just, moving forward, sort of thinking for other organizations that might come to us, just keep this in mind when we're contemplating other things.
Right.
Just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Well, it was good exercise because it forced us to think through, particularly Greg did the work, about what is the cost? What is the impact?
Mhm. Thank you for doing that, Al.
Yep.
Appreciate it. And there's a motion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's approved. Great. Manifest, who's got the manifest?
I seek a motion to approve the manifest. If I can find where's mine? Here we go. Total of all manifests of $2,413,547.16.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There's approval of a donation from the Conservation Commission, that's in the packet as well. And, where is that?
It's $1,000 to
Yep.
support the 8th grade field trip, which is coming up. They came and talked to us a couple
Right. Oh,
weeks
there it is.
ago,
Okay.
environmental focus, and so the Conservation Commission has graciously donated $1,000 towards that cause.
Great.
I'm
Thank-
sorry, who's?
The 8th grade field trip from the
Yeah.
Conservation Commission.
Oh, great.
Yeah, thank you for that generous donation. Do we need a
do.
seeking a motion to approve the generous donation for $1,000 from the Conservation Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Then the next is the minutes of May 2nd, 2019, public and non-public.
I move to accept the minutes on May 2nd, 2019, public and non-public.
Second.
Any questions, changes? Nothing? Okay, all those in favor? Aye, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and we do have occasion to go into non-public pursuant to,
So before we do that, can I
Yep.
just mention one thing?
Yep.
So I received today a letter of resignation. It's not on your agenda to act on tonight, but I want to make the board aware because we were going to need to post for that anticipated opening. and it is for our existing data manager position. So Amy Rossi will be leaving at the end of this school year.
Okay.
And so principals and Erica will be meeting with Susan next week, and that will be part of the conversation about what the process should look like to fill that.
Okay. Thank you. So I seek a motion to go into non-public pursuant to RSA 91A, :3, Roman 2, C and A.
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Zink? Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
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 Ms. McKinney, aye. We are in non-public.